tech cycle depends on India for its talent. So if you haven't, please read up on some of the talent reports which are being generated. India will continue to be the talent pool for all of the world because of two things. Number one, our prowess over English, and number two, our tech talent. So you're never not going to have a job. That's not going to happen.
So Bitcoins happened, and then, it saw a tsunami of companies coming up as well, right? I personally have seen at least 10 companies that I knew of. They went bankrupt.
Yes.
They closed shops. 4 years back or 3 years back or 2 years back, we were saying that Bitcoins or the cryptocurrencies, they are the future.
Yeah.
When we're talking about the payment space. How do you see this trend? Is it very volatile? Is it very risky for these people to get into fintech? Is it very risky to get into startups in general?
See, startups will always tend to be risky. Has anybody here not invested in the stock market? First, tell me this. Everybody's invested. So I was talking to somebody who's a very senior financial advisor, and he said, "When did you start investing?" And I gave him the timeline. He said that you've never seen a bear cycle. I said, no, I have. My my portfolio tanked recently. And he said, how much was it? I said, another like 5 minus 5 minus 7. He said, that's not what we call a crash. And he said, you've basically never seen a crash cycle. And I said, maybe I haven't. And that actually struck me, and it stayed with me for a long time. A lot of the people who, specifically after, I would say 2018 or 17, have seen this massive boom in tech. And they haven't seen the time of the gold. Again, there have been so many crashes earlier, which analysts and old people like us keep referring to. And then you think it'll never happen to you. Because quite honestly, two things have happened. Number one, India has insulated itself. So when the US sneezes, we don't catch a cold. It's actually the other countries which are still catching a cold, which is great. You're part of that history. And second thing is that the tech cycle depends on India for its talent. So if you haven't, please read up on some of the talent reports which are being generated. India will continue to be the talent pool for all of the world because of two things. Number one, our prowess over English, and number two, our tech talent. So you're never not going to have a job. That's not going to happen. Now, the next question comes is, why are startups becoming so risky? Because in startups, nobody saw this boom. Everybody saw the boom in COVID. They overhired. And then when this bust happened, nobody imagined it would be this big. Fintech, unfortunately, has seen also the rough end of the stick here because business models were not thought about when these companies were being created. And now when the question for path to profitability comes up, like, it's very good intention, but it's come at a very bad time. When you think about profitability, all of us expect payments to be free. Everybody in this room said they've never paid for payments. So who pays for it? Somebody has to pay the bill for all of this to work, right? Similarly, in payments, there's something happening in the background. Now, because this has happened, these new industries or these new verticals come up and we don't think about it. And especially, and I wouldn't say that VCs and PEs are to be blamed for it. It's also because these are sunrise industries. So you'd want to jump into it to be able to get that big flip in your portfolio without thinking. Now, if you're trying to think about getting into fintech, and just like I think you've been hearing this all through the day, do your own research. Try to understand what that space will do for you. And depending on your career experience, you figure out whether that will be a good enough investment of your time, your resources, which is, we only have three things: time, money, and resources, right? That's all we have, even as humans. Think about whether you want to put your own human capital in that sunrise industry. If you feel that, this is too risky. So if you hear the news and you keep reading that our regulators are saying not happening, and you're like, no, man, I'm going to invest all my money in Bitcoin, then I have to question your own judgment. So my request to everybody will be, when you're joining fintech, understand the tech behind the fin and the fin behind the tech. Do your own research, talk to experts, and then make up your mind. If I put in 2 years right now, what will I derive out of it? What are the skills I will learn? And what is it that I need to unlearn? And if the industry excites you, then please join. But if you think that the money is going to be the driver or that massive flip in career progression, like everybody's a VP, then please don't, because ultimately you have to understand it's the technology that is powering the financial services. It is not the financial services use cases which is powering technology. You need to understand this, that there's a lot that is happening literally under the water for your card to work here. There are massive cable lines that have been laid by governments, by countries, by companies, so that your card payment can happen in less than millisecond. So you don't see the infra, but you need to know that infra exists. So do your own research. And by the way, guys, you have all access to the internet. Trust me, when we guys started out, we didn't. So you guys are really lucky. Use networking. Use forums like this. Network to find out the right answer. Just don't be blinded.
Do I need to have finance expertise in order to be in the fintech sector?
Not at all. So fintech itself has so many verticals that I've also lost count. But if anybody is interested, please look at the fintech landscape and you will find these massive maps where the logos are so small, you literally have to push yourself to even understand what the logo means. And there's so many new verticals. But I will just say this, that what you need is curiosity, the ability to go deep, and the ability to want to understand how things work. And I cannot underline this enough, but finance expertise is needed if you are going into say a personal wealth app. So if you were, imagine creating a new stock app and you didn't understand how stock markets work, I think you would be in the wrong place, right? Because you would be like, why does this happen and why does that happen? So if you had a finance background, that would be great. But for example, if you were in the profitability division of a startup and you were expected to create profitability models and you don't have a finance background, so you don't even understand what the top line and bottom line is, then that's a massive problem. But don't keep that as something that talks you out of, I can't be in fintech. In fact, fintech needs people who don't understand these things so that you are able to break those boundaries and come up with new ideas. Because sometimes we are blinded, right? Because we see too much of it and we don't know what the right thing would be. So we need people who are not from this field as well.
So we started by saying that the payments that happened at the time when websites were the mode of doing these payments across countries, across geographies. Then we moved on to cards. Fortunately, the person who has worked on some of these cards is sitting right next to me now. And then we moved to the payment apps that came up, and right now which we are using. And now government is putting in a lot of effort. And as you said, putting those cables to make these payments in the form of ONDC and CBDC.
That's right.
Right? Tell us what is going to happen in the payment space in the future, in the time to come when these guys become like 30.
I'm very excited about two things. Number one, India is going to be, it's already a leader in DPIs, which is public infrastructure, which is digital public infrastructure. But ONDC changes the way we shop. So instead of relying on a couple of players, which is not a bad thing, but the monopoly breaks and you have access to that person who's sitting in Kanyakumari who still wants to be able to sell something to you. And the payment rail is very simple, just for that person as well as for you. You don't need to depend on complex payment methods and you have access. So imagine India got connected from Kashmir to Kanyakumari and from Northeast to Northwest, all because of the telecom revolution. But now imagine if shopping connects you all, and shopping is an inherent need. We're not just anytime thinking about only grocery, right? You're thinking about your basic daily needs all the way till aspirational needs. Now, the fact of the matter is that in India, the iPhone is actually the biggest leader in refurbished phones category, which means people like you and I might buy an iPhone, but the people who are aspirationally buying it the next level are actually people who are in the 10,000 to 15,000 monthly pay packet range, and they're buying an iPhone. So what happens when that aspirational person wants to buy something? And ONDC will enable that to happen at a very subsidized price and at a customer experience which is going to be unparalleled. There's something more exciting coming up with account aggregators. So all of you people who are sitting in the room want to own your own privacy. Nobody wants your data to be shared with anyone. So account aggregators gives you access to your financial data where you say, okay, I am the owner of my data and I choose to share it, for example, with you. Will you give me a loan? And you say, yes, I think you look like a very worthy customer and I will give you a loan. Now that all becomes enabled because of this infrastructure. And then there is OCEN, which actually allows access to credit. So people like you and I.
What is the third one?
OCEN, OCEN, Open Credit Enablement Network. So people like you and I, when we need money, we go to our parents or we go to our friends or we go to our bank, which gives you money. But imagine if you're a small panwala and he needs access to money right now. He goes to a lender who charges anywhere between 16 to 18% per day, sometimes per month. That is the market that we are talking about. So imagine if that person then says, and there is an ability for us, which is banks and financial institutions, to say to this person, this looks like a really good guy. He's been selling in this small footpath for the last 5 years. I want to give a loan to him. Would that be revolutionary? So that's what is going to happen. And India is doing all this because our penetration of credit is the lowest in the world. So with a population size, I don't think that we can go to the bottom of the pyramid. I'll have to be super honest. At least I don't believe that will happen in my lifetime. The top and the middle of the pyramid has to grow bigger if India has to become that 30 trillion or whatever other economy. We have to be able to give credit to people who need it to grow their business, and this will be one method of doing it.
What is happening in the lending space in India? Is it looking optimistic to you?
Okay, this is a bad question to ask me. I've never been a very big, I've been very vocal, and that's why I stopped about talking about BNPL, but I don't understand the model. So BNPL is going through its own set of problems right now. The regulator is coming very heavy on it, and for good reason. So I don't think people like you and I need buy now, pay later. Like if somebody gives me 10,000 rupees on the road and says, pay me if you want to, I'll take it, but I won't pay him back. That is the problem with buy now, pay later. Collection is an issue, but by the way, I certainly feel that India needs this, but it needs to be handled with the guardrails in place, like the finance minister has said. RBI has actually repeated that. Mr. Das has spoken about it many times. We need to be able to set up a network or the ability to be able to get money back. And it doesn't need to be through harassment and through these weird calls that happen and fake apps. It has to be done in a regulated way.
Honestly, I am grown up seeing the kirana shop guy putting a board saying Aaj Nagad Kal Udhar.
Yes.
So I don't know whether that will work in India or not.
Yes.
That's why I asked you how optimistic you are about it.
I am optimistic though. The Khata book, which are, like our small kirana store owners, they know you by name. But I feel that this concept, again, it has legs specifically for our aspirational younger ones who are spending more and earning less. So that's a little bit of a bubble that also gets created. We are almost at following the same path as the US did. So that's worrisome. But at the same time, I wouldn't say that we shouldn't aspire to own things, consume things, because if India doesn't consume, we won't grow. So we need to be not just a savings economy. Please do save. I'm not saying we don't. Everybody should save money, but we need to consume. And that consumerism is going to drive this ability to first have credit where you need it the most. For example, you go down. Please don't, not all of you should have credit to buy an iPhone if you want to. No, even I shouldn't. But if you wanted to and you could pay back, you should have that ability. And I think I'm by the way, I'm very against the idea that I need to dictate if you buy an iPhone. Like, who am I to say that? We should make India so big and so rich that all of us should have that ability. Whether they make that decision or not is theirs. But I should not dictate that you should not be able to do this because I feel you're not credit worthy. I think this I don't like, because this basically tells us that we are a poor country. I want all of us to be able to do that, and that ability will happen if we are spending wisely. We are taking a loan, but we are also repaying it back. And that's the kind of financial discipline that I think our regulators want us to have.